All right, you are now tuned into the Rotated Views podcast. I am your host, Jimmylee Velez. I'm here with Goose, Heck, Gabe, and Josue.
What up?
The music scene. In this episode, we welcome back special guest Josue Lora. We cover topics that range from the music industry, collaborations, creative processes, effects of Corona, and much more. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Debbi Fields and Bob Marley. Guys, if you're new, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to download and subscribe. We drop a new episode every Tuesday morning for your listening pleasure. Kicking things off, Josue, thank you for joining us, man. We appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you joined us in episode 138. And if you have not yet had a chance to take a listen, please do. But for those of us who do not know who you are and what you do, let us know.
So my name is Josue Lora. I'm a Latin alternative musician, and I'm also a filmmaker.
Awesome. Nice. All right, so the last time you were on, we talked music. We also talked filmmaking. We did a project or two together. But let's just catch everyone up. Like, how did you get started in the music industry? You know, where did it begin for you?
When was that we met up? Random thought.
Yeah, that was that was like April of last year.
April of last year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was working on an album back then. Yeah. So I started creating music when I was when I was like 16, 18. And then I released my first album, I think, at 20, 21.
Okay.
And then I got into filmmaking. I used to play with it when I was like 13. And then by 16, 17, I was like making money. At 18, I like opened up an actual company unofficially. And then at 20, I officially opened it. And that's been like my main source of income. Since we met, I started an indie record label, actually. And that's been kind of fun, where we curate events. We help different artists. We run different events and shows over at the studio. So kind of that stuff. But yeah, I started when I was 16, making music around there. And then I started filmmaking at the same time. I mainly started doing music videos because I couldn't afford to pay somebody else to basically shoot my own music videos. So first check I got, I was an intern at a radio station. It was a $500 check. And the first thing I did was go and buy a Canon T2i. And I think I asked my dad for an extra $100, and I bought a 50 mil, and that's how I started shooting.
Nice.
And then I got like my first home studio at like 14, and started playing with that.
That's awesome. So you started your own indie label. So let's talk a little bit about that. I did go to, between you being on this show and today, in between there, you had like a little event at an art gallery, I believe, in Trenton that I went to that was pretty dope. The way you had, obviously it's an art gallery, so you have all this unique, pieces of art hanging on the wall. The vibe was cool, it was super dim. You had lights going, and you featured a bunch of artists. They might have been your boys. I'm not sure what it was. But explain a little bit about that.
Which one was that one? We did a few. You went in August, right?
Yeah, it was hot.
Yeah, okay. So
not in the place. I just remember it being hot because I left. I remember leaving, and me and you were going back. I'm like, I don't know if I can make it because my wife wasn't back yet.
Okay.
My boys were swimming in the pool, and then my wife came back. I'm like, yes. And the only reason why I said I knew it was hot was because they were swimming in the pool, and I remember just taking a shower, getting dressed, and hauling butt over there. And I'm like, so happy I went.
So that one was kind of like an introduction to a music series I'm still doing with Artworks. That's the name of the space.
Yes, that's it.
And I think that was an album release party that we had. After that, we did 2 more events. We have 2 more to go. And the series is called Raíces, which is a multicultural music series. So that one, since it went so well, it brought a lot of different people from different backgrounds.
Yeah.
People that spoke different languages together. We thought, hey, why not? And then I'm trying to get funding to make it free for the community.
Yeah.
So far, I did get funding for the next one. So the next one is free.
Nice.
So we have 2 more. It was supposed to be in the springtime, and then the other one was going to be in the summer, and then that would have closed it out. I guess that's like being pushed back because of the virus.
Right.
But yeah, that one, it was me, my buddy Peter, was our album release party, and then after that, we did another one with this guy. His name is Josue Lora, and he's by far the best guitar player that I've ever met. He's played on like a bunch of Grammy winning albums.
Wow.
And it was like fun. It was like, it had like a lot of Dominican roots in it. And then the second one, after that, Raíces Part 2 had these guys from Colombia and this girl from Philly who sounds she sounds cool. She sung in English. She's Jewish and Puerto Rican. Which I thought was like, it was a really interesting mixture.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was mad fun. And the space is great. Artworks doesn't really do live music. It's an art gallery. And I think that's why we did it, because they don't usually do that.
Yeah, and I think it was it was like the vibe that you brought to something that was you typically just white walls, and the art piece itself. You want a blank wall, right? You do want that blank canvas because you don't want it to take away from the actual art pieces. But what was unique about this was they kind of created their own little stage or little area with, their little setup or whatever. And behind them was actual art pieces hanging on the wall. And then they had this cool, like these lights kind of shooting all over the place. And they created this very interesting vibe. And you could tell it was like if you weren't in there like kind of bobbing your head, it was like something was wrong or you were sick or something, because it was just so... It was interesting. I'd never seen anything like it. It was basically this little concert at an art gallery, in the middle of an art gallery. And so I don't know if that's the vibe that you wanted, or you just thought that was. How did that even come about?
So I ran the art gallery for 3 years. It was called Casa Cultura. And then, to be honest, rent got super expensive. So so we were forced to close it. But that was basically the vibe. The space was actually really small.
Yeah.
But at any show, we had like 100 people. So you actually couldn't move.
Yeah.
So Artworks is huge in comparison.
Yeah.
And the art is, some of the art is way more expensive. So it was like kind of different for us, but not really.
Yeah.
And I think everyone just went because they wanted to have fun.
Sure.
And it was still kind of intimate, although the space was huge and the art was great. The directors are like really friendly. I think it was just all good vibes all around. But yeah, definitely that's kind of like the vibe we were going for, something like really different.
Yeah.
Because most people that were there actually don't go to concerts regularly.
Right.
Like I asked around and they're like, I've never been to a concert.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, well, you should. Welcome.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know when's the next time we'll go to a concert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Artworks is great. I got yelled at one time for stepping on a $20,000 art piece.
Oh, wow.
Yikes.
Wow.
That's crazy, because I literally just read like some article of a person was in a museum in Italy that leaned over on some statue that was 200 years old and broke the foot off of this statue.
Oh my gosh.
And it's that you just said that, it's like the level of cringe is like super high. No, but it was a cool vibe. But it's funny though, because you just said that gone to a concert. I've gone to a bunch of concerts, but the concerts I've gone to, maybe TLA. If we go to TLA in Philly, maybe that was like that intimate like setting. You kind of get that, but even that has levels, right? And then beyond that, we were in Jersey, just all over the place. But you're in like a stadium or like something with seating, so you're kind of like you're directed to sit almost in this little thing, and there's a bunch of people going over, which is also dope because everyone's feeling that same vibe, right? Because people buying tickets to everyone there likes that same music, so everyone's feeling that kind of thing. This was more of like an unexpected. I can't really explain. It's almost like a. I'm gonna start it off like that jazz feel almost when we initially started going in, because I think you guys were just playing music to begin with. Like the DJ was just kind of getting started, and making sure the sound was correct. And then you're looking around while there's music. I was looking around in the museum or the art pieces while the music's playing in the background. So moving forward, what do you want the shows to be? You said you have 2 to close out. What kind of setting do you want, and what do you hope for?
I think moving forward, again, same thing, like a multicultural environment. Again, something like very different that you don't normally see. I think I want to play more with sets and lighting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Basically, just follow the same format, but try to include different cultures. Like we already touched on Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
The second guys were from Colombia. Maybe next one, there's like a huge Guatemalan presence in Trenton where we do it. Maybe we'll have somebody that does like traditional music from Guatemala or Central America.
Yeah.
And then the third one, maybe like touch on like some Afro-Caribbean stuff a little more. But yeah, each time I subtly try to show people that it's more than just like popular music that you hear on the radio. It's more than like reggaeton and trap and
exactly
all this stuff that you just listen to normally.
Yeah.
Although that stuff is cool, it's fun. It's really fun to listen to, but I think a lot of times people don't even know that there's like really good music other than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because even jazz, some people are like jazz is boring, and I'm like, well, have you looked at like a Tom Mitch,
right?
Who does jazz but his own way, and is like he sounds crazy.
Yeah.
And I think the guy doesn't even like read music.
Yeah.
And do you guys know who he is?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
You should check him out. He's like crazy dope. He just released an album, and I think he's from the UK or London. Wherever. yeah.
I mean, we grew up, like growing up for us, we grew up in a Christian house setting, right? So,
same.
Yeah, so we had obviously Spanish music, we had gospel, but one of the big ones when we went to, like if we're listening to music that was in English, was always we went to jazz, and so we were always had like the jazz or the blues kind of thing going anyway. So when we started listening to, as we became teenagers, we started listening to rap, I guess, rap and hip hop, so to speak. I was more into like the conscious, like rappers, Common, Talib Kweli. So we started listening to these guys, and so I was already into like, wow, it's like sort of poetic. I like it. It wasn't until later on where I got into like, it was like I guess you call it more of like what you hear mainstream now, but that still even isn't what, so I have appreciation for the jazz, that little, that aspect of it. And it's good. And I feel like sometimes with social media, those genres kind of get buried because there's so much marketing going on with the other stuff.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's not necessarily that it's bad, but there could be something that could be way more intriguing to you, and you don't even know it's out there.
Yeah, and I mean, like you're going up against like Beyonce's great, but it's Beyonce, like Disney Plus, she's everywhere.
Right, right.
So you take like a Tom Mitch that I just mentioned. I'm like, do you guys know who Tom Mitch is? And it's like, not really. He has a great album. It's like an amazing album.
Yeah.
But you put him up against like a Beyonce or even like a Meek Mill, let's say.
Yeah.
And most people are gonna be like, oh, I know who Meek Mill is.
Right.
Like off the top of their head. And
and these labels get behind this one person that they know. At the end of the day, we all hate to say it, but it's a business, right? And then they're trying to make their money, they're trying to make their return on their investment, and so they're getting behind a specific artist, specific songs, albums, whatever it is. And unfortunately, some people get lost in the sauce, or talent gets lost in the middle of the ocean with the sharks.
I think it's also like it could be like both ways. It could be like a good and bad thing. Like I know this one guy, he's like really talented, and he refuses to put his music on streaming services. He releases CDs. He refuses to film music videos, anything. He refuses. He says, "I'm happy where I'm at." Yeah. And I asked him, like, how do you make money? He says, I am making more money than some of my artists some of my friends that are signed.
Yeah.
And I said, how? And he said, I will contact my list of like 100 or 300 people, say I have a show tonight in a private location. I will send it to you an hour before. And he says he does this once a month, and they will go to his show, and he'll charge them like $20, but some of them will pay way more.
Right.
And the way he designs his sets, they're like amazing. And it's almost like, who is this guy? What is he doing now?
Wow.
And since he's been doing it for like 15 years, he's developed like this long list of followers. And like he says, I'm happy. He says, I would hate to like tour the world and do all these things. So I think while you may have like somebody who's huge as Beyonce or Meek Mill, you also have that guy who's completely happy on his hill in Puerto Rico doing shows by the beach barefoot.
It's like a phantom, right? Phantom, like nobody knows about, like you don't get no info about him until
it's
that
underground.
moment.
It's really truly underground.
I mean they know him like because they followed him, but he doesn't tell you where.
Right, his actual.
And then when he tells you, like you might have to drive up a mountain and you might need like a Jeep to get there. But that's why people go. It's like an experience.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, there's a bunch of folks who made it off just the internet, basically having
Soulja Boy.
Like something was that.
Like but the first
have
one.
Like they have like their little unique following, whatever it is, for whatever reason, right? They just follow this person, and it is almost like Earl Sweatshirt is a person who's a person that was like, he's not mainstream, like
at all.
But if you mention him to a specific group of people, they are like like we just said, die-hard fans. They love this dude. And it was just kind of, when you were saying that, it kind of reminded me of him. It was like, he does these little intimate settings. It's almost like the size of a bar or whatever it is. And he's there, and this jam-packed. This bar never had that many people in its existence. It's been there for 25 years, and this dude's blowing out the walls. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, releases like that.
But he's also respected, like, on the mainstream level. Like, a lot of people, like, the ones that know, they're like, this guy's a really good writer.
Yeah.
His music just, like, for the average listener, is a little hard to, I guess, consume. Like, if anyone's ever listened to Earl. Yeah. Like, his newer stuff. But, yeah, I mean, I think it's cool what he's doing. He seems happy.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's about, finding your happiness. Like,
and I also feel like within their mixing genres more than ever now, right? So you have like someone who's singing. Yeah, that's what, and I think that's what makes it appealing, because you could become truly unique. You don't have to stay stuck to a specific genre. You don't have to stay stuck to a specific style. Back in the day, you would have like an R&B singer singing on your track, and then you're rapping like for the the hip hop scene. Now it's like, you yourself can sing. You could be doing the instrumentals. You could have produced the whole thing. Like, people are so talented. They're figuring it all out themselves. And especially now more than ever with technology. We were just talking right before you got on about, a camera and what it can do and how it can shoot live videos for us on, a couple clicks here and there. Has that changed the game as well? You think, like, with instruments, are instruments going to go out the window and just have these, these boards where, I can make a trumpet sound with 3 little touches of, keys here? Or do people are going to stick with having the actual instrument?
I think it just depends on the person. Me personally, I like both. I like using both. Yeah. I linked up with like a really well-known producer, and he was playing like a trumpet on like keys. Yeah. And he's like, a real trumpet player couldn't even do that. And he was really good. Yeah. He also used live instruments, but since we were there, I think it just depends on the person. As far as me, I always try to include like actual live instruments. Some people say like using virtual instruments is like cheating or whatever. Mm-hmm. I just think it's like things evolve. And I think like you should use all these tools to your advantage. If something sounds cheap and you don't like it, that's a different thing. But if that's the sound you're going for, I always try to include both. I think that's, for me, it works. It's actually really fun. I try to do everything live, and it sounds amazing. It works for some stuff it doesn't. I guess it just depends what sound you're going for.
Yeah, I mean, there's tools for everything, right? I mean, I know growing up, my dad was a handyman, and so were my uncle. They had tools like a handsaw, and obviously the hammer or whatever, that they were building beautiful things. But if I could build the same thing they were doing with an air gun and a circular saw, I will not feel any less of a man. Honestly, I'm being serious. Yeah. I would just be proud of what I produced, and I'd be hyped as hell. Yeah, you got to give them credit for X, Y, and Z, but I'm like, listen, I'm going to take advantage of, a tool, and it serves the same purpose. Now, don't get me wrong, I still can use a hammer and a saw as well for a different project. Right. But who's to say they wouldn't have if they had the ability, if they had the if it was exposed to them at that point?
Yeah, it just depends on the person. I mean, you have songs going number one where it's like a little loop from and like a drum loop. I think Drake does that. I get like really upset with Drake sometimes because I'm like, all right, the production sounds cool, but sometimes I'm like, all right, dude, please do a little more. Yeah. I think Pharrell's the king of that. I think Pharrell's really great, and I think he utilizes both. And I think, to me, Pharrell's like the ultimate producer, up there with Dr. Dre as far as like hip hop. I also like this guy from Puerto Rico. His name is Visitante. He was part of Calle 13. And the guy now has like 28 Grammys.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The guy is like a beast producing, but he uses both.
Okay.
And he was like, his first big hit, it was like a reggaeton mixture with like Brazilian sounds. And it was like really weird, but the song was like huge everywhere you went. And even like the chorus was like longer than usual songs.
Yeah, yeah.
Like his chorus was longer than like an average song at the time, and he repeated that chorus 3 times.
Wow. Oh my God. Oh man, with the 9-minute song.
The actual, not the one that was like on MTV, but the actual song was like 7 minutes. I think.
Yeah, wow, that's wild. Now producing, do you think that becomes like a style when people use like, for example, there was a time I would say that in the early 2000s where everyone used Scott Storch, right? And they just constantly
he's
used
back.
him, and he's back now. He's better than I think he's even better.
Great.
Yeah,
I
I
like
think
him.
he's even better now. Do you think? Or even now, like almost every hip hop song you hear, it was like DJ Mustard, and then it went to Take Keith, and now it's like whoever it is now, and it's just constant like. But every song on the radio is the same person, different artist, but the same dude who's produced. So is it like a style thing, or just going with who's popping at that time?
I think it's. I mean, from a business standpoint, it's like, all right, if this song is hot, how can we recreate that? And like, the Baby does that like all day, where it's like, oh, I had a #1 hit, I'm gonna do it again. Yeah, and then like, I guess he stays up there. I think it's just like whoever's hot right now, and then that person's like the it guy. For me, I try to look for things that are like different. Like if something sounds the same all the time, I think that's when we create crappy things. Because why not be different?
Yeah. So have you ever gotten in a predicament where you're doing a collab, or you're just creating with someone, and you ended up with a finished product that you liked and they liked equally as much, and you kind of, do you ever get like in a tug of war, like who's gonna take it, like who's gonna put it on there?
That actually happened with my buddy Peter Notaje. Like we have our first 2 albums are together. Yeah, actually 3. We did a live one. So for like, since I started releasing stuff, most of it has been with him. Yeah. And now he's like, oh, I'm releasing a solo album. Yeah. And I spent a bunch of time producing these tracks. Yeah. And then he says, this is my song. Yeah. And he's like my brother. And I look at him and I'm like, no, it's not. And then he goes, well, you can have that one. Yeah, yeah. And then I'm like, which one do I like more? Yeah, yeah. And then I look at him and I'm like, so it's kind of like difficult, but at the end of the day, like it's cool as long as it gets out there. Like we just released a song, it's called Náufrago, and I think we both love it. Yeah. And he wanted another one that's unreleased, and Náufrago is like really more commercial than the other one. Yeah. And he says, I want the other one for my project. And I said, I really like that song. And he said, you can have Náufrago. And I said, yeah, hands down, I got it. You can take
it. That's awesome. And you know what? And it takes a lot. I remember watching a interview with an artist by the name of Ty Dolla $ign, and he Ty Dolla $ign, YG, and DJ Mustard, I think grew up in the same area. I think they're different age groups, but they grew up in the same area. And Ty Dolla $ign had this song, I forget which one it is. It's the one, whatever one that made YG famous, basically. It was actually Ty Dolla $ign.
Tooted and Booted song?
Yes. And so he allowed him. It was actually Ty Dolla $ign's song. Supposedly, this if I got the story right, he stepped back and said, "No, you can have it. You're younger. Like you're probably more than likely going to pop off more than I am." Well, they end up people liking his voice, Ty Dolla $ign's voice, singing on it, and they're like, "Well, who's this guy?" or whatever. For the people who didn't know him. And all of a sudden, he ended up getting a deal out of it as well. And they both kind of like bloomed, so it was dope. And then they're like, who put this together? DJ Mustard. And then all 3 of them blew up all at the same time.
That's great.
That's amazing. Yeah. For that to happen, I don't know what they're all doing now, but it was one of those things. That's hard though. It's hard to give up your baby when you put in mad time, your heart and energy into it, your soul, and it was like, oh man, you see someone else's name slapped on it.
It also takes like I think like a little bit of growth. Like I had somebody, I was telling someone, I'm like, oh, I spend a lot of time creating music, and he said that's probably coming from like, even if you don't realize it, like you being insecure, like even slightly. So he said, try to create something in a day and see what comes of it. And I'm like, all right, word, I'll do it. And then like I did it, and I'm like, yo, I really like this, like something I created like really fast rather than like spending a bunch of time on. I went back and like tweaked it and all of this, but like for the most part, I created it in a day. Yeah. And I think even with that, like being able to like give something up, it takes so much out of you. I think like you should grow. Yeah. That happened in the the Mac Miller album, like I don't think he credited a lot of people.
Okay.
And a lot of people I think gave him those things because they were good friends with him. The one, not his most recent one, the one before he passed, Swimming.
Yeah.
I think John Mayer's on it and like a bunch of other people. And people are like, who is that?
Yeah.
And after he passed, they were like, oh yeah, that's me. So I think it's kind of like the same thing where it's like, oh, you can have this, but I think it takes growth.
Yeah. Yeah, Lil Baby says he charges everybody for everything, so he don't have that. He don't have that issue.
That's one way to do it. Yeah, charge everyone, like, here you go. It's like, it's yours. Do whatever you want.
Charges everybody. He says it's too funny. So explain a little bit about that. Your creative process. You said try to develop something within a day and see what comes out of it, see what the product is, without forcing it, right? Because there's nothing worse than trying to force something, and maybe you do need to let it go and come back to it the next day or whenever you're in that vibe again. Because I heard singer, rapper, whatever he wants to call himself, Russ.
Russ is dope.
Yeah, Russ developed a song and didn't fully finish. He said he, for whatever reason, it's a really recent drop that he just did, and he actually let the fans finish it with him on like live IG because someone asked him like, "What's your creative process?" He's like, "Let's do it together." So he's like, "I already have half the song or beginning of a song, or I got the hook or something, and we'll keep going." He developed this song, whether it was great or not. He didn't really play the full song. I guess you had to like download it or whatever. It was interesting because he allowed people in for the first time with his actual creative process.
Oh, word.
And now it's called Russ featuring the fans. Like, literally, that's what the track is actually called.
Russ is a genius.
Yeah. I mean, just that alone brought more fans towards him because that's like an attractive thing to do. It's different. It's genius for marketing. It's genius because you're actually truly showing people what your process is. Yep. And all creatives say this all the time. I have nothing to hide because my creativity is going to be completely different than what your creativity is. My style, my splash is totally different. So even if I showed you how I did something, it's still going to sound different than if you were to do it. What do you think about that? What's your creative process? And would you be able to do something like that? Like have other people, oh, what if you did this? Like that would be like kind of distracting if you thought about it.
I can, and I have, and even like what you said about Russ working on a song and like coming back to it, I do that every day.
Yeah,
like I'll start something and I won't touch it for months or weeks or whatever. I like the way I've been creating some of my most recent work is I'll start it, I'll produce it, whether I get whatever sounds I have, somebody else play, and then I start building it. Then I'll get like another musician in, and I'll say, hey, what do you think this needs? And I'll get them to play that. And then I'll play around with some other sounds. But a lot of it is like their input as well, where they're like, oh, what if you added this to it? A lot of people I'm close with, I'll have them come by and listen to it and say, how does this sound to you? I had my friend tell me, oh, this one's fire. Keep this one.
Yeah.
And then another one came on and he said, it sounds like elevator music.
Yeah.
So I was
two totally different.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So it was like, and I'm like, all right, cool. I'm like, I like the song a lot.
Yeah.
And he said, no, it sounds like elevator music. So I said, all right, I'll keep working on it. I'll make it not sound that way.
Yeah.
But even that was like him having his input where he said the keys sound like kind of cheesy.
Yeah.
Like you're on the elevator. And then I even started doing this something similar as to Russ because it's coronavirus. I just played everything I have unreleased like on Facebook or Instagram Live.
Yeah. And
just saw how people reacted to it.
Yeah.
So I saw that the ones they really liked, they would comment and say, oh, nice chords, or oh, this song is fire. The ones that like I was a little bit about, they just like let it rock.
Yeah.
And then when another one came back on, they were like, oh, word.
Yeah.
Or I'll put like little snippets on Instagram, and if someone hits me up, I'm like, oh, this is cool. I'm like, all right, cool. Some people like it. Sometimes people wouldn't say anything. Yeah. And I didn't take it like to heart or like thought about it too much, but it was just like a cool little experiment.
Yeah. Do you have anything on deck ready to go, like beats, whatever it is, just something, hooks, something in the back of your mind, like if somebody, or you have somebody in mind for, like if they jumped on this would be crazy, but you didn't really put it together yet?
Nah, for sure. I definitely have like a bunch of stuff. So my creative process now has been before I would get like instrumentals from other people, and then I would add onto it. I would get people to play on them. My last album, I worked with this guy named Ivan Barrias, and he produced a lot of it. A lot of it I produced myself, where I got like just different musicians, and then I added different elements. Nowadays, I downloaded a Splice. A Splice membership, which is basically you have like royalty-free sounds.
Oh, okay.
So I download like a sound that I think might work. I might download like a drum loop, and I'll use that like as a reference, right? And I say I'll create with this, and then I'll get this really good keyboard player that I know, and I said, hey, this is like my reference. Can we create something that doesn't sound like this but has the same vibe?
Yeah.
And then I said, cool. And then I'll get a drummer, or I'll keep that same drum loop, right? Because I did pay for it. I can use it. I'll alter it in some way. So basically, it's like sampling in a way. Or maybe I'll keep like a nice like 4-bar piano loop, and then I'll change it some way. And then I'll keep that. But I always like add either a hook or verse. So I think now I have like 40 tracks, and I've never produced like or worked on music like so quick or had so much of it like just sitting around.
Yeah.
Because I used to just work on one track for like 3 months.
Right.
Where now I'm like, all right, I'm creating this, and I'll just have it there.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what I'm gonna do with it yet, because I don't plan on releasing an album for a long time. I plan on just releasing singles and doing videos and seeing what happens.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of videos, you just released a video. Talk about the track that was on there, and what was the whole thing behind the video. You're just dancing in front of in front of the camera with no shirt on. You're having a good old time.
So the video actually releases Monday.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. That was me being silly when we were mixing the song 2 months ago, actually. I just never posted the video.
That's great.
So the song is called Naufrago, and it was produced by me and this kid, Jimmy on Jets.
Okay.
So I love the production on it, because I took a typical Dominican tambora, which is like a drum made out of like goat or cow skin and wood.
Yeah.
And it was like a traditional Dominican sound. And then I said, Jimmy, can you give me some 808s? And I got the sound that I wanted.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want this sound. I tweaked it, I EQ'd it, whatever. And then I said, cool, I want this on top of it. I want these horns. I said, because I hate sitting there with an MPC. That I cannot do. I don't have the patience for it.
Yeah.
And Jimmy on Jets is like, this kid, he's great. So I said, cool, add these horns. After we had some of that already created, I said, this will sound great with like additional percussion. So I said, hey, I want something like this. I brought another guy in. I'm not a percussion player. And then the song started building. I had my hook. I had 2 verses on it. And then my buddy Notaje Peter walks in, and I don't think he was supposed to be on the song.
Yeah.
Because I said, you're not on this song. I'm creating stuff by myself. And then he's like, oh, put the mic on. And then I think he like one taked it, and he did like this awesome like part where I was like, you're on the song. And it sounds amazing. And he didn't like it. He said, I can't sing. And I was like, bro, I'm like, it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And then he's like, nah. And I'm like, all right, hold up. So I think I brought somebody in, his cousin, and like, yo, how this sound to you? He said, bro, this is fire.
Yeah.
So we built it, and then we kept creating, and then we had this kid, his name is Loops, which he's like an amazing MC. He could dance really, really well.
Yeah.
He's an amazing actor. He hates being compared to his father, but his father's actually Vico C, which is like a pioneer in like urban music in Puerto Rico. Like I think he started in '87, but because of him we have Bad Bunnies, Tego Calderon, all these people. And so I think it was like cool because Vico C, I started rapping because of Vico C. So years later to have like his son on the track, and not even to say, oh, it's his son, for him to be his own person, and say, I'm my own person, I don't need my father's fame, and hold his own, I think has been amazing. Like people don't even know that's his son. Like we don't ever share it that way because I'm sure he's tired of hearing that.
Sure.
But for us it was special just to, it was weird for me to start making music because of his father, and years later like making music with his son. It was like, I was like, yo, this is like kind of very like in a weird way. It's like, all right, keep doing whatever you're doing. And then for the song to be like great, it was like one of the first times we like played around with autotune. And we just wanted to like mess with people because a lot of times they said, oh, your stuff sounds like jazz. I was like, I can easily recreate stuff that's on the radio and do it in my own way and have fun with it. And they're like, no, you can. I'm like, okay. So here we are. I think the song is like a really fun song. The video drops on Monday.
That's awesome.
I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, man. And then from what we saw so far, you just honestly, you look like you're having fun.
Yeah, I am having fun. I'm having the most fun I've had creating music.
Well, do you feel pressure? Do you feel pressure to produce a specific amount, a specific type? Like you said, like people are like, oh, that, we expect a certain sound from you. Don't switch up, or you can't switch up, or I bet you can't, whatever. Do you feel that you have to produce something specific?
Not at all. Like, I remember quitting my job for the simple fact that I didn't like people telling me what to do.
Yeah.
Which sounds horrible. And I feel like that's how it is with music. Like, it's like I can create whatever I want. If it happens, it happens. I don't have to impress a label. I put up my own money. I film my own stuff.
Exactly.
I don't answer to anyone else. So I can kind of create like on my own terms whenever I want. If I wanted to quit and get a job at Walmart tomorrow, I can do that and not owe anybody anything.
Yeah.
So from that sense, I don't feel like any pressure. At the same time, I'm like really anxious. Like sometimes that does kick in, and like self-doubt and anxiety does play a role where it's like a lot of people that I've seen and like have worked with, I see their careers like taking off in comparison.
Sure.
Or like what might seem to me, where somebody might say, I just got 1 million hits on this, and I'm over here sitting with however many hits on my song.
Yeah.
Where it's not jealousy. It's almost like, how can I get there? And why haven't I gotten there already?
Absolutely.
I feel like that's like the one thing that like takes over me. And I don't share that much.
Yeah.
But I think the more I talk about it, the better I feel, because people are normally like, just stay in your own lane. You're doing like a good job.
Absolutely.
And I feel like we should all like keep that in mind. At the same time, I always try to restructure things and I also look at people, I'm like, okay, what worked for them?
Exactly. That's what I was just going to say. Sometimes not bad, because in comparison, you could find a couple little advantages, a couple little tweaks here and there that could benefit you in the long run. And it's good. I do feel like to have that little competitive edge as well. I think that's what gets a lot of people going. I think that's what generates a different kind of energy in a healthy way. And I think that happens to everybody in every industry, the self-doubt. We were just actually talking about that with my uncles who are, in their 50s and, talking about, having to produce every day, knowing you have like a little kid or a son or something or a daughter, and you're like, dude, and that pressure that we're talking about, driving into work to produce, right? And I was talking about, I was getting freaked out because this one location that I was driving into was this deer everywhere, and so like I'd have like a mini heart attack every single day thinking a deer was going to jump out in front of me, and they're like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like being, having to produce for my family. Oh, all right, now I understand what you're saying. But if sometimes we compare ourselves to other people's situations and we don't even really know what their thing is, you know what I mean? And then we get caught in this little loop in our heads, and we made up a whole story that's not even there. It's not even a real thing.
Instagram is horrible.
Instagram, I mean, these filters, I don't even know what you even call it anymore. It's actually kind of as bad as weird as 2020. I mean, what people do with Instagram is bad as weird. It's like, I don't even know what's going on anymore. What is that? But again, a platform that you can utilize to your advantage. Like you said, you could use an Instagram Live and get feedback on a specific thing. If there is someone out there listening right now, what advice would you give them if they are doubting themselves, even although they are getting positive feedback from a specific group?
You're probably sitting like on your best work, whatever you're creating, whether it's art, whether it's a blessed podcast, whether it's a song. Just put it out, just keep creating. And if you are like really doubting it and you don't think it's good, show it to people that will give you like an honest opinion. Just be a little careful. Like some people's opinions really don't matter, and they might not know what they're talking about. Yeah. So, but try to show it to I would show it to like your girlfriend or something. Yeah. Or show it to like your mom and see what they think. Mm-hmm. Some people that might not know anything about it might be like the best critics, because they'll judge without having any background, and they'll say, "Oh, I like it," and that's how most people will probably receive it. Yeah. And it's okay. Just try to find what will make you happy. Yeah. Don't go for being the next Jay-Z, the next Beyonce, or whatever. I feel like a lot of times that's what like we're shown is like, be the best. Yeah. And don't stop until you get there. Right. And it's like, okay, but enjoy the journey while you're getting there.
I like it.
Like these moments are what's gonna these moments are really what's making me happy, being in my studio, like with my Splice account, like chopping stuff up and getting like my friends to come and play on my stuff and playing around with auto-tune and different sounds and, you know, dancing without a shirt in the studio.
Absolutely.
Are like what's fun.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm having really a lot of fun right now.
Yeah. Have you ever, that's great advice too, by the way, thank you. Have you ever scrapped the whole idea?
I have. I've done that a lot with like music videos where I have, so I film everything and direct everything and I cut everything, which is becoming like a lot of work.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I end up scrapping a lot of ideas because I'm like, I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Most times I find myself doing them and then saying, all right, that didn't work.
Yeah.
I won't do that again.
Yeah.
But it takes like a little bit of growth to even be able to do it to begin with, because I was in a space before where I was very scared to even do things because I thought it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Now if it works, it's like great. If it doesn't, I'm like, all right, cool, on to the next thing. Like even mentioning Russ, I think he said he dropped like 20 mixtapes or something before, like being Russ. Now the guy shares his how he made like $1.2 million off one song.
Right.
And he has like 10 of them that made over $1 million.
Yeah.
I'm sure he has more, but that's what he showed.
Yeah.
So you think a guy that dropped 20 albums on SoundCloud and off one song, one of his songs, like $1 million is like, really? Like 20 albums and now you're Russ.
Yeah. Yeah, he was doing something where he said he dropped a song a week or something like that for however long.
I could never do that.
Yeah, he dropped a song a week for however long, and he showed his account, and his account was like, whatever. He made like $400 his first month or whatever, $200 his first month, and it legitimately doubled. And like you were saying, by like, he showed a whole year. It was like from June 2017 or 2018 to like the following year. The following June, and it was like in six figures, and that was just like you said, that was just a one account, and he's independent, so
that's all his money.
All his.
And the person he's distributing with, which is TuneCore, he gets 100% of his royalties. Wow. He just has to pay taxes on his money. There's not a label, there's not an investor. He creates all his stuff, even his music video stuff. You can tell is like it doesn't have a huge budget.
Yeah.
But for him it works. There's certain songs that have like a bigger budget and you can tell.
Yeah.
But for him to be chilling in his house recording a video is what works. Even with Drake, where he did what was that video? The
Tootsie Slide?
He was in his house. Yeah. Like that's
like, which, I mean, his house is like a mall, but it was like, yes.
yeah, his house is a mall, right? But he already paid for the house. Like he doesn't have to spend $100,000 on the music video. Absolutely. He walked through his house.
Yeah.
And the music video was great.
Yeah. Very true. Yeah, and I think you're right. I think certain things work for certain peoples. I feel like if you get stuck in the flashy thing, I feel like you have to constantly do that or like live up to it or something like that. There's just the whole new genre. It's not new, but the genre of like pain music with like Rod Wave and Derez Deschamps did it like years ago, and he still does it. Where I don't think you even need that much. This same thing. He's just like walking through his house, his old childhood house, and just showing. And the song goes with what he's doing. He's just walking through his neighborhood, and that's it. I don't think that's more than, several $1,000s just to put that thing together.
Yeah, if even,
like, there's nothing. There's no one featured in it. It's literally just him in the same outfit.
Kanye dropped the song with walking around with his daughter, like on the GoPro.
Yeah.
And then I think the song was like a loop. And he just has money to clear the sample, and it's Kanye West, so blew up. But yeah, a lot of times it doesn't even take that much stuff. So yeah, if you're out there doubting yourself, thinking this is not good enough, a lot of times it's better than even some stuff Kanye might put out, or even Russ himself.
Yeah.
That's how I feel with some of my stuff. I'm like people are like, oh, so how do you feel about it? I'm like, it's better than anything you're gonna hear this month.
Yeah.
And they think it's arrogant, and I'm like, no, it really is.
Yeah.
Even with this podcast, there's other podcasts, but this might be a way better podcast than someone else.
Oh, absolutely.
I think a lot of times people measure talent with views and numbers and all this stuff, and it's no, take that away. Look at the content.
Yes. Yeah.
But then again, art is subjective, and you get into that debate.
So would you? So if there's someone looking and they're looking to get signed, because I read this a headline somewhere. They said if Drake were to go independent,
he should.
The music industry would be done.
He's Drake.
Yeah,
Drake can literally like say nothing on a song and like it'll probably go. It'll chart. It's Drake. Like, if they were trying to get signed, how to do it?
Yeah. Well, no, not just get signed. What's your take on being with a label versus being independent?
I'm gonna put myself in the category. Like I started my own label. Like Jay-Z, he said nobody would sign me, so I signed myself, right? Yeah. And then I started like, and even the stuff I'm already doing is basically like everything a label is doing. Yeah. And it was just getting organized as far as like for money purposes and all that.
Sure.
I think it depends. Everybody's different. If you have like a huge following already, or even like a decent enough following, and you want to reach a certain level, and a label is offering you help with that, cool. Just don't sign to like a 5-album deal because you might be like enslaved. If you just want to keep all of your money like Russ, just keep going. It might take you a little longer, but you'll have control over everything. Even Russ, he partnered with I forgot who it was. I don't know if it was Columbia, and he partnered with them for like I think a year or two, and then it wasn't a record deal. It was a partnership. And you can tell they helped them like shoot a really like nice music video. Yeah. They helped them with marketing. Yeah. As soon as that was over, he said, "All right, my deal with them is over." And he's released like 8 songs since then. Wow. And each song he's made like a bunch of money. He keeps sharing it. Yeah. So it just depends. If you need help and somebody signs you and the deal's right, go for it. If you'd rather be independent and grind it out, it might happen. It might not. But you'll own all your stuff. And I think Jay-Z is like to me, like his team is genius because they own like Reasonable Doubt. Is him, what is it, Biggs and Dame Dash. Yeah. I'm not sure if there's somebody else, but even early on they like knew that they had to create their own stuff, and today they own all of their own stuff. And I think that's the way to go. You should always own your stuff, even if you get signed by a label. Make sure at the end of the day you end up owning your masters, owning your music. I wouldn't recommend a 360 deal, but for some people it works. For somebody that's making songs in his attic and has no marketing or no help and no idea what to do, a deal works. Yeah. Go for it. Yeah. They'll get you to that label.
Absolutely. All right, so do you have anything you want to say before we head out? Any parting words, any words of advice?
Wear your mask.
All right, so there you have it. We like to wrap things up with quotes, and the first one is by Bob Marley. One good thing about music, when it hits you, you feel no pain. Second, by Debbi Fields, the important thing is not being afraid to take a chance. Remember, the greatest failure is to not try. Once you find something you love to do, be the best at doing it. The music scene. In this episode, we welcome back special guest Josue Lora. We cover topics that range from the music industry, collaborations, creative processes, effects of coronavirus, and much more. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Debbi Fields and Bob Marley. Awesome. Guys, thanks again for joining us. The Rotated Views podcast was produced for self-development purposes. Huge shout out to our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Blessed Lifestyle brand. That is BL3SSED.com. Also sponsored by The Motivation Files Unleashed. This motivational mixtape will be your fuel for success. Available on all platforms. Guys, don't forget to visit the website, JimmyleeVelez.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Rotated Views. If you have any inquiries or questions, email us at info@JimmyleeVelez.com. On behalf of myself and the rest of the crew, we wish you massive success. Stay blessed.